Welcome to A Reason to Talk with Chris Reason. Today's episode, we are looking back on the career and tragedy of Chris Benoit. This might be a rough one. Let's get into today's episode.
Tell me what you saw, tell me what you heard. Every weirdo legend, every hard-hit word. A reason to talk, a reason to talk. Chris Reason, we're here for the strange, the loud, the dark.
Alright, I know this one's going to be a tough topic, obviously. Inside the ring, Benoit was the rabid Wolverine, fierce, precise, and respected by fans and wrestlers alike. But in June of 2007, his name became linked to something far more disturbing, an unthinkable act that shocked the world and left a permanent scar on wrestling's legacy. Chris Benoit was born on May 21st, 1967 in Montreal, Quebec, Canada, but grew up in Edmonton, Alberta. From a young age, he was captivated by wrestling. His heroes were Bret the Hitman Hart and Dynamite Kid, smaller wrestlers who proved that skill and toughness could overcome size. Determined to follow in their footsteps, Benoit trained in the legendary Hart Dungeon, known as one of the toughest training grounds in wrestling. What he lacked in charisma, he made up for in discipline and intensity. That being said, the Hart Dungeon was just a freaking basement or something. Oh, according to the WWF match. His journey took him to Japan, where he wrestled as Wild Pegasus. There, he built a reputation as one of the most technically gifted performers in the world. Fans respected him not for flashy promos, but for the realism and precision of his matches. By the mid-90s, Benoit was a star in WCW, wrestling in classes against Dean Malenko, Eddie Guerrero, and Chris Jericho. His style was stiff, hard-hitting, and believable. He made you think every move counted. That being said, besides WCW, him, Rey Mysterio Jr., Psychosis, Dean Malenko, Eddie Guerrero, and a whole bunch of others, Chris Jericho as well. ECW is where they got a lot of their start before they even went from WCW, or even kind of in between. ECW was like a third party, I guess you could say, between the two, WCW and WWF. I don't know why I'm emphasizing this part, but it's a good point. Like, it was like the third major company in that sense. In 2000, Benoit made the jump to WWE, and 4 years later, at WrestleMania 20, he reached the pinnacle of his career in the main event. Chris Benoit forced Triple H to tap out, winning the World Heavyweight Championship. Tears ran down his face as his best friend Eddie Guerrero joined him in the ring. The two embraced, celebrating a shared dream come true. For fans, it was a career-defining moment. The underdog who worked tirelessly, finally standing tall at the top of the wrestling world. But just 1 year later, tragedy struck. Eddie Guerrero died suddenly in November 2005. Benoit was devastated. Friends say he was never the same again. His grief was visible, and many noticed a darker, more withdrawn side of him after Eddie's passing. And I feel like a lot of that emotion from Eddie Guerrero passing, his best friend, hit him harder than anything else that could have done in wrestling to that extent. Yes, the chair shots, the CTE, concussions, the steroid use, everything. But mind you, Benoit also had a brain of the 80-year-old Alzheimer's patient. According to studies done by Chris Novinsky, or how do you pronounce his name, he was tough enough contestant that also went to Harvard and studied brains. June 25th, 2007, police entered Benoit's home in Fayetteville, Georgia, when WWE Benoit's employers requested a welfare check after Benoit missed weekend events without notice, leading the two concerns. The officers discovered the bodies of Benoit, his wife Nancy, and their 7-year-old son Daniel around 2:30 p.m. Upon investigating, no additional suspects were sought by authorities. It was determined that Benoit had committed the murders over a 3-day period. Benoit had killed his wife and son before committing suicide. His wife was bound before the killing. Benoit's son was drugged with Xanax and lightly unconscious before Benoit strangled him. Benoit then committed suicide by hanging himself on his lap pull-down machine. WWE canceled the scheduled 3-hour-long live Raw show on June 25th and replaced the broadcast version with a 3-hour tribute to Benoit's life and career featuring his past matches, segments from the Hard Knocks, the Chris Benoit Story DVD, and comments from wrestlers and announcers. Toxicology reports released on July 17, 2007 revealed that at their time of death, Nancy had 3 different drugs in her system: Xanax, hydrocodone, and hydromorphone, all of which were found at therapeutic rather than toxic levels. Daniel was found to have Xanax in his system, which led the chief medical examiner to believe that he was sedated before he was murdered. Benoit was found to have Xanax, hydrocodone, and an elevated level of testosterone caused by a synthetic form of the hormone in his system. The chief medical examiner attributed the testosterone level to Benoit possibly being treated for a deficiency caused by previous steroid abuse or testicular insufficiency. There was no indication that anything in Benoit's body contributed to his violent behavior that led to the murder-suicide, concluding that there was no roid rage involved. Prior to the murder-suicide, Benoit had illegally been given medications not in compliance with WWE's Talent Wellness program in February 2006, including nandrolone, an anabolic steroid, and anastrozole, a breast cancer medication which is used by bodybuilders for its powerful anestrogenic effects. During the investigation into steroid abuse, it was revealed that other wrestlers had also been given steroids. That being said, WWE's wellness policy is a joke, especially for 20 years ago. Now, it's different, obviously, but it's still a joke. They claimed that they had improved it when clearly they didn't. That also being said, there's a little theory that Chris Benoit didn't actually murder his wife or son and then commit suicide. The theory of it being a whole homicide. The theory of a homicide from Kevin Sullivan, another wrestler who was married to Nancy Benoit before Chris was. And then the theory of it being a huge feud and him taking revenge of quote-unquote Chris Benoit taking his wife in that sense. But we can never know now that Kevin Sullivan has passed away as well. After the double murder-suicide, neuroscientist and retired professional wrestler Christopher Nowitzki, I was right, contacted Michael Benoit, Chris's father, suggesting that years of trauma to his son's brain may have led to his actions. Tests were conducted on Benoit's brain by Julian Bales, the head of neurosurgery at West Virginia University, and results showed that Benoit's brain was so severely damaged it resembled the brain of an 85-year-old Alzheimer's patient. That's what I just quoted. He was reported to have an advanced form of dementia, similar to the brains of 4 retired NFL players who had multiple concussions, sank into the depression, and harmed themselves or others. Bales and his colleagues concluded that repeated concussions can lead to dementia, which can contribute to severe behavioral problems. Benoit's father suggests that brain damage may have been the leading cause. Obviously, with Chris Benoit doing a headbutt dive from the top rope, with people saying wrestling is fake in that sense, you still are landing full force onto your freaking head. No matter how protected it is, you're still taking severe CTE or concussion damage or brain damage. When the details of Benoit's actions became apparent, WWE made the decision to remove nearly all mentions of Chris Benoit from their website, featured broadcasts, and all publications. That being said, if you go to any of their his matches or shows that he was on, you're not going to be able to skip to them, but you can still watch them unless you like fast forward. But they're not going to do like how sometimes they're like, oh, you want to watch this match on this show? They can skip to it. You pretty much isn't a mention. The match still exists, but you just can't skip to it on a lot of stuff. Fans were left asking, how could this happen? How could one of the most respected wrestlers in the world commit such a horrific act? Doctors studied Benoit's brain, and the findings were shocking. He suffered from chronic traumatic encephalopathy, or CTE. I never knew that's what that stood for. Severe brain damage caused by years of repeated head trauma. His brain resembled that of an elderly Alzheimer's patient like before. Combined with concussions, possible steroids, and deep emotional struggles, the damage may have pushed Benoit past the point of control. The tragedy forced wrestling to change. WWE banned chair shots to the head. Concussion protocols became stricter. Benoit's story became a case study in the hidden dangers of head trauma in sports. I think after this is when WWE actually kicked themselves in the ass and said, all right, we need to have a legitimate wellness policy. Yes, ban chair shots to the head. You can still see them in other promotions. They don't do them frequently unless it's deathmatch or stuff. Like obviously when AEW did the Shawn Spears angle with Cody Rhodes, with the chairman of the board type of shit, with that chair shot, everybody rushed to make sure Cody was fine. So how should we remember Chris Benoit? He's one of the greatest technical wrestlers of all time. or as the man who committed an unthinkable crime. Truth is, the story will always be complicated. People always saying WWE Hall of Famer, people always saying he's a murderer. But that being said, look back at who's in the WWE Hall of Fame. And that also being said, WWE Hall of Fame is pretty much a joke. Anybody and their mother's in it, including probably other murderers or other horrific people that we don't know about. What we know is this. His career was extraordinary, but his final actions left a wound that will never fully heal. Thank you for joining me on A Reason to Talk with Chris Reason. If you enjoyed this episode, please follow and share the show. And if you someone you know is struggling with mental health, please reach out for help. You're not alone. Peace and bacon grease.
Tell me what you saw.